Invitamos por favor a Dario Nardella.
And now I would like to hand over to Dario Nardella, the Mayor of Florence. We're running slightly late, so I would like to appeal to the next speakers, asking them whether they could maybe shorten their presentations by a few minutes. Thank you. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank the Pontifical Academy of Social Sciences for having invited us to take part in this important event, which first and foremost enables us to discuss encyclical Laudato Si, which invites us to take care of our common home, as His Holiness Pope Francis states in addressing this encyclical to goodwill. The aim is to modify our social relations and human relations to uphold the dignity of human beings and of God's creation. And this is obviously something which calls to action. Mayors, economists, scientists, representatives of religions. It is only if we come together that we can identify common solutions to common problems. And obviously cities have a key role to play, because as we know, the 21st century is known as the century of urban areas. In this world, cities account for less than 30% of the Earth's surface, but account for 50% of the planet's residents. In the 1800s, only 5% of the global population lived in cities. And we know that in cities, over 65% of our economic activities take place. And above all, cities account for 80% of all of the available resources in terms of consumption. The city of Florence, that I am mayor of, is obviously ready to rise to this challenge and is consequently very grateful for this invitation. Our contributions, there are three main areas of action. Firstly, we wish to enhance our culture and promote the value of culture as an instrument for dialogue and for the development of sustainable development. Florence, for approximately 2 centuries, was the leading city in the world. It was our world's leading economic capital between the 14th and the 16th century. And this was due to the city's commitment to the value of human dignity, Renaissance, the humanist movement, and cultural and philosophical works recognized the relationship between man and man, as Dante said, moves the sun and other stars, as His Holiness Pope Francis recalls in his encyclical, so as to fully with this paradigmatic change that we're invited to embrace in the encyclical. My city can only recover its great philosophical and cultural tradition in order to have a contemporary view of the world and of nature, harking back to our forefathers. We are faced with the challenge of a new humanism in which man is no longer at the center of all things, but the earth is at the center of our human things. And in this respect, we pay tribute to the Episcopal Conference's initiative to hold the 5th National Ecclesiastical Conference, which will be held on the 11th of November, the title being In Jesus Christ, New Humanism. This event is something we're looking forward to eagerly, not least because His Holiness will be visiting the city on that occasion. In the build-up to this event, the city of Florence is holding a number of public events to involve the entire community so that all of our secular society can be prepared for challenges that are not merely spiritual, but have a bearing on our contemporary society, as we have seen in the course of today's discussion. The second point has to do with the city's policies to fight climate change and the imbalances that it triggers. Only a comprehensive approach can lead us to the needed change in our economic, social and cultural relations and consequently the use of resources that are available. Cities, therefore, have an important direct role to play, and I would like to mention some of the projects that the City of Florence is promoting so as to guarantee that we embrace socially sustainable and economically viable development. We've talked about improving mass transit systems with modern public transport systems to link the city centre and its suburbs so that all citizens can circulate easily. Because freedom of in large urban areas is one of the most important rights that accompany our citizens in their leisure time and work time. Obviously, we can also at the same time reduce CO2 emissions and provide advantages for the less fortunate. And secondly, the City of Florence is working on developing for utility networks, water, because our first task is that of avoiding wastage of precious resources. Another aspect that we're working on is the ability to use our natural resources more appropriately as rivers, and of course refer to the cities that have a river. We have one, the River Arno, which we try and look after with increasing investments and attentions, because we still recall vividly the impact of the disastrous flood, which in 1966 gave rise to a global movement of solidarity to save the city of Florence's art and culture, which was threatened by the mud and the rubble that built up as a consequence of the flood. And finally, we wish to engage in adequate architectural measures in order to reclaim and convert unused buildings. We want to build new buildings, but we want to give new life to abandoned premises in the city. And third point, which we're committed to, is continuing to engage with city peoples all over the world. This is a vocation that is deeply rooted in our tradition. Florence is the city of peace, as we know, and in November this year there will be an additional important event entitled Unity in Diversity. 100 of the most important mayors of the world will convene in Florence on that occasion, and I very much hope that many of those who have not as yet accepted our invitation may do so. This will be an important opportunity for us to discuss the reasons for conflict. Giorgio Lapira, who was mentioned repeatedly in the Vatican, I would like to mention the words of Cardinal Piovanelli in his meetings with the mayors. Well, Holy Mayor had the role that mayors have in promoting, because the diplomacy of cities can achieve more than the diplomacies of states, because if kingdoms passed, cities survive. And in conclusion, the Holy Father invites us to take a long-term view of our resources for the common good and to engage in appropriate measures so as to go beyond short-termism. This is our commitment. We have to make sure that we can guarantee that future generations may enjoy our cities with an appropriate approach as promoted by St. Francis of Assisi. We must understand that when we have to do what is necessary before that which is possible, because suddenly we will realize that we can do the impossible. Let us choose the necessary and not one that we think is possible. I very much hope that from now on we will develop a new approach in creating and forging a partnership between the mayors of the world and that global and local governance can convince sovereign states of the need to improve the world. Thank you.